Sri UN Behra IS Additional Chief Secretary Finance, Sri PK Mohanty, Chief Regional Manager, Indian Overseas Bank. Can I have a huge round of applause for gentlemen? Srimati Neera Chakravarti, DGM, Indian Bank. Sri D. Shetty, GM, RPCD, RBI. And he will also be serving us as the moderator of this session, Sri D. Shetty, GM, RPCD, RBI. We have our another speaker here, Srimati Kajri Mishra, Professor XIMB. Now I'll be requesting my beloved friend, please hand over the flower bouquet to all these ladies and the gentlemen. Now I'll be handing over this mic to our moderator. He is Sri D. Shetty, GM, RPCD, RBI.
Respected Behra Sahab, Additional Chief Secretary in charge of Finance, Government of Odisha, esteemed participants for this session, technical session, my panelists, co-panelists, Madam Indira and Mr. Mohanty. 4 panelist members, one by one, will share thoughts with the audience about whatever we feel like. Thereafter, we will make the forum open for interface and any brainstorming session, anything they have to say. They can ask the questions if we have, otherwise we will take the suggestions for future guidance. So, may I now request the Additional Chief Secretary Finance, Sri Behra, to please address, give his thought.
The panelists, DGM of Indian Overseas Bank, Mr. Mohanty, Mr. Sethi, ladies and gentlemen, this is a very timely topic. This year, Government of India is launching the intensive financial inclusion program. In fact, Prime Minister of India will be launching this program. The purpose is to include all the families of the country under the financial inclusion program. Every family of this country will have a bank account within this period of 1 year. This is definitely a tough task, particularly for the state like Odisha, where financial penetration, the banking coverage has still a long way to go. As of 2011 census, Odisha has only 45% of the household in Odisha had a bank account. And though in rural area the coverage is about 66%, about 2/3 of the urban population, urban families have bank account. In the rural areas it is 41%. And Odisha as such, on the whole, the coverage is low, and we have this challenging task of going into this, for achieving this target of having bank account for every household in the state within a period of 1 year. Our banks in Odisha have responded very positively to this, and the SLBC in the last 2-3 meetings have taken up an ambitious program of covering all the banks, all the unbanked gram panchayats of the state with a brick and mortar branch within a period of 5 years. Though the task appears to be little difficult, but if you look at the way the banks have been distributed, these unbanked GPs have been distributed among the banks, this task doesn't seem to be very difficult. I have personally spoken to some of the heads of the banks in the state, and they have expressed that it is achievable. Within 5 years it is achievable. We have little more than 6,200 gram panchayats in the state, out of which as of last March, 31st March 2014, we had as many as 4,597 gram panchayats which were not banked. This is a big number. Definitely it looks like there has been a concentration of banks in the urban areas and semi-urban areas, and the rural areas have still not been covered. If you look at this number, 4,597 gram panchayats out of 6,200 having not been covered by a scheduled commercial bank, definitely we can say that the coverage is low, and there has been concentration in certain pockets, and there is still a large percentage of the people, large percentage of the geographical area of the state still left out. So these 4,970 numbers, if you are spreading over 5 years, roughly about 1,000, little less than 1,000 has to be covered every year. Last year we had a very good achievement in the state. Nearly 500 banks were opened last year, and if you look at this 1,000 every year, it may not be very difficult if all the banks cooperate in this and they work as per their plan. The SLBC convener, the UCO Bank of the United Commercial Bank, they have done a very good exercise with help of all the LDMs, lead district managers. They have conducted this exercise. They have identified all the unbanked gram panchayats, and they have distributed it among the different banks. In GP wise, each individual GP has been earmarked for a particular bank, so there is no confusion at all, and each bank also has been told, I mean, individual gram panchayats have been allotted, and they have published a booklet on this. This booklet, this information I believe is also available on the SLBC website, so everybody in the state would know. Now definitely there will be pressure on the banks from the people from those areas. When are you going to, this particular GP has been allotted to you, so when are you going to open your branch in this GP? So this pressure will be definitely there, but I am sure the banks will rise to this requirement, rise to this occasion, and they open their branches. So this may be, apparently there may not be adequate business at the moment. If you go to individual GPs, if a commercial bank branch has to be opened at such a place, there may not be adequate business to start with, but I am sure with a bank branch available next door, the business will improve. I had made an analysis between 2011 December and 2013 December. The number of the deposit in our rural branches in Odisha has gone up by 40%. Deposit in rural branches in Odisha has gone up by 40%. This is higher than the state average. The rate of the growth is higher than the state average. This is higher than the national average. This is also higher than the national average for rural branches in the country. Those figures are there. So what we see that in the last 2 years or in the recent past, there has been money in the hands of the rural people, and there is a habit of saving. The saving habit has improved, so that this 40% growth in the last 2 years shows that there is money available for deposit, and people are taking advantage of whatever financial inclusion program we have been doing for the last 5 years. We have been doing it for the last 5 years, and there has been a good financial inclusion so far as the deposit is concerned. 40% growth in 2 years is a very good number, and the money has been mobilized by the rural branches. So this experience shows that if you reach out to more and more gram panchayats, more and more unbanked villages, unbanked GPs, and we involved all the families. Today 45% of the rural families only are covered with bank accounts. Imagine if 100% of the families are covered with bank accounts, this situation will definitely improve, and a lot of money can be mobilized in terms of savings, and funds will be available for credit for funding all these activities. And once we bring all these families under the banking network, there will be definitely more financial activities. And today's topic, that financial inclusion for financial growth, for inclusive growth, financial inclusion for inclusive growth. This is, I would say that financial inclusion is more or less directly proportional to the inclusive growth. If you look at the statistics of all the countries and all the states in our country, I have got some figures for your you can appreciate it. You all know that last year CRISIL had developed this financial inclusion index called CRISIL Inclusix. So where they have tried to make a measurement of the financial inclusion. So in this chart, Odisha has inclusive index of 40.6, 40.6 is, which is just about the national average, which is 40.1. The highest in this thing is Pondicherry, 79.6, 79.6, and as per the 2012-13 per capita net state domestic product per capita, Pondicherry is 1,22,000 rupees. Their inclusive index is 79.6 and their per capita NSTP is 1,20,000 rupees. Odisha inclusive index 40.6, per capita NSTP 49,241. Almost directly proportional. Look at some other states also. Andhra Pradesh 61.3 and per capita NSTP is 78,958. More or less you will see there is a correlation. Bihar inclusive index 23.5, per capita NSTP 28,774. Almost you can see that there is a direct correlation between this financial inclusion index and the per capita NSTP of a state. So this is when we are talking of per capita, it may not really give you a measure of how well spread or badly spread is this per capita income. There could be very rich people, there could be very poor people, there could be very high income group, there could be very low income group. But then if you look at it, there will be some correlation. That I think one has to look at the income distribution also to see this figure, but definitely there will be some correlation. Some study could be done on that, but definitely there will be some correlation so far as this is concerned. In Odisha, also similar situation is there. Khurda district is highest inclusive index of 75 and lowest. You can easily guess which are the district who are the lowest this financial inclusion index. District of Nabarangpur is the lowest with a 24.4, followed by Malkangiri 25.2. Not very difficult to guess, and this is the financial inclusion index of these districts. And if you look at the again per capita income in these districts, they are more or less some kind. There will be some difference, of course. So for example, district like Jharsuguda, which has the largest per capita income in the state as per our survey, but then financial inclusion is not that good as compared to Khurda. Maybe because there is concentration of income in certain pockets, and there is income at the lower rung of the district is not that good. So there could be some differences like this, but that financial inclusion will lead to better inclusive growth. There is no doubt about it. Worldwide also figures can be seen to substantiate this point. Then what does financial inclusion actually does? It makes basically three major services available to the people. One, deposit. Like a little surplus whatever one has, he has a safe place to deposit it and earn a little interest thereon. Safe place to deposit for two reasons. One is the money is safe. Two, it is an insurance against your difficult times also. So this is the deposit part. Credit, we all know credit is a very important driver in economic growth. Let us say state like Odisha. We have our budget size is 80,000 crores, and our capital investment is something like 13,000 crores. Our capital outlay, state's capital outlay, what the provision we are making in the budget is something like 13,000 crores, just 13,000 crores. But imagine the kind of money the banks can bring in for capital investment in the state, at the household level, at corporate level, at company level, the kind of money they can bring. Our gross deposit of all commercial banks, scheduled commercial bank is 1,60,000 crores. 1,60,000 crores. And government through all its efforts just puts 13,000 crore in capital outlay. Whereas if we make just add 10%, we just add 10% in terms of credit for capital outlay, it is 16,000 crores, much bigger than what government can bring in this. So banking system has enormous capacity for capital outlay, which is a main driver for economic growth. Similarly, credit for agriculture, all those activities may not be capital investment, but for annual activities, this can be this can play, banking can play a very major role. And if the coverage is bigger, every household has access to it. He gets deposit, he gets a safe place to park his money and earn a little interest on that. He also has access to credit. Anybody, any family for that matter. You need credit for many things. You need credit for your annual economic activity, be it a crop or animal husbandry or any activity. You need credit for that. You may need credit for your educating your child, education loan, or meeting a critical health need. You may need credit. Suddenly there is a critical need. Where else one goes? Some credit. So this is the second part. Third is insurance. The insurance penetration today, the country as a whole is very low. Just about our insurance coverage is less than 5% of the gross domestic product. Less than 5% of our gross domestic product is insured by some kind of insurance. This thing, where bulk of it is life insurance, and just about more than 1% is by other general insurance services. So our GDP, our production is not insured. So the people who are depending on different activities, they are so much exposed to this risk, and this is a huge market in the country for financial inclusion. And obviously, if you go to rural areas, there will be hardly any activity that is insured. Even this crop insurance also, the coverage is not adequate. Otherwise, there are many things like a animal, crop, somebody's life, or medical insurance, the coverage is very low. So this can also provide a big benefit to the people, particularly in the areas which are not accessed by various financial services so far. Reserve Bank of India has taken a number of steps in the last few years. In fact, financial inclusion is not a new concept to this country. It started in a big way with the nationalization of the banks in 1969. Because basically in 1969 this nationalization helped in financial inclusion. Then series of measures were started in 1980s. Your creation of establishment of NABARD itself in early 1980s was towards financial inclusion. So, and in the last 10 years, Reserve Bank of India has taken a number of initiatives for financial inclusion, and today's effort by the Reserve Bank of India, the Bankers Club, and Political and Business Daily, they have taken this workshop, they have organized this workshop and taken up this important topic for discussion. I am sure all of us can contribute substantially to how to go about it. Let us say in the next 4 or 5 years we are thinking of new branches. Some modus operandi has been worked out regarding the viability of the branches and regarding the business that the branches can get. So likewise, there could, and now this target of covering all the families within 1 year is also a difficult task, but we will have to achieve it, and we have to put our head together and see how to go about it. We had recently had a discussion where the regional director of Reserve Bank of India, our convener of SLBC, the CGM of State Bank of India, CGM of NABARD, all were there, and it has been like banking correspondence. It will not be difficult to have brick and mortar branches in all the areas so soon. We have taken up a 5-year program for that, but then within a year we have to have these accounts for everybody. So the business correspondence, viable business correspondence, could be used effectively for this purpose. Who are the possible business correspondents? We have already taken up, all the banks have already taken up a lot of business correspondence. There are some institutional business correspondents also which could be tapped. We discussed that day. One is we have about 2,700 packs, so they could be involved as BCs, business correspondents. Large number, they have a large membership base also. All the members who are the members of all the farmers who are the members of the packs, they interact them with more or less on a daily basis, so they can be used as BCs for reaching out to remote areas. Number two, self-help groups. There are 300,000 self-help groups in this state. 3 lakh self-help groups in the state. Every self-help group has a membership of about 10 to 12. So that is another institutional business correspondence which can be made use of. Third, these common service centers. Common service centers, they are also spread all over the state. They could also be used to, they are already doing different financial transactions. They can also be engaged as BCs. So this is a good idea that these kind of institutional, I'm sure if you just engage the self-help groups in this process, we can reach out to almost everybody. And look at the requirement also. We have 40 lakh pensioners, old age pensions, widow pensions, handicap pension. We have 40 lakh. Our total number of families in the state is something like 90 lakh. 40 lakh pensioners are there. 30 lakh scholarship holders. Different scholarships, there are about 30 lakh number scholarships are there. 40 lakh pension holders. So far as the demand is concerned, so far as the business potential is concerned, they are all there. In the effort of this opening of accounts, banks will have to now identify the unbanked families and reach out to them. We have given instruction to all the government departments who are dealing with subsidies, different kind of subventions, scholarships and other things, to list out their beneficiaries and give it in a soft copy form to the SLBC, which in turn can be passed on to the different banks and to their lowest units, so that they can pick out the people who are the potential users of the bank accounts. They can be, those accounts can be opened to start with. We have also taken help of the UDI authorities, Unique Identification Authority of India, UDI authorities. They have already given us this Aadhaar number of nearly 2.1 crore persons. The Aadhaar numbers are there. Panchayat Raj Department has another database of where all the families and with their members listed in that database in a very systematic manner. All this information will be available to the banks. So making a survey of the families, that has already been done, and these Aadhaar numbers can be also used for unique identification of the persons. So the accounts can be easily Aadhaar seeded, and all these benefits, direct benefits, can be transferred. So I would say that this financial inclusion has a great possibility for inclusive growth, and we all have a big responsibility in bringing every family of this state under this program, which can not only give rise to inclusive growth, but also achieve overall financial growth of the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Behera sir. Now we got the perspective from Odisha state government regarding financial inclusion and inclusive growth. As Behera sir has rightly pointed out, inclusive growth or financial inclusion is nothing new. It has been, we have been pursuing since 1969, since the day of bank nationalization. No doubt about it. However, in spite of we are going to complete 67 years of independence, we still have, even today, we have nearly 48% of the stakeholders outside the financial access, outside the formal financial structure. That is the reason in 2005, Reserve Bank of India introduced financial inclusion as a policy initiative. Inclusive growth has twin objectives. Number one, it's distributive justice. If growth is inclusive, so justice is distributive. And number two, any growth which touches all the stakeholders, it will be sustainable, and it is sustainable growth what not only India, entire globe is aiming for. That is the reason Reserve Bank of India pursued a policy, financial inclusion, in 2005. And we asked all the banks to open. First we set a target of 2000 and above. A village having a population 2000 and above should be covered first. Once we achieved that, we extended it to less than 2000. And in the entire country, we all actually started in a mission mode. We requested the bankers to open the bank accounts of the villages. At least one account for each household in a village should be opened by the banks. To large extent, see, I will tell you, I will give you some statistics. Behra sir has given quite a few nice strategies. I will give you some statistics. National level, bank branches as in 2010, I am having the data as in 2010, as in March 2010, there are only 85,500 bank branches. And then now that March 2013, the branch network has increased to 1,05,078. So let's say in 3 years, nearly 20,000 bank branches have been opened in the country. And in the rural branches, even it's the same, no, almost the same actually percentage, around 20-25% growth has been there in the branch banking in the rural areas. What is more alarming, what is more amazing is the banking access to other mode other than the bank branches, that is BC or other modes. It has 296% increase in 3 years. From 67,000 or 68,000 odd banking outlets, that means access through BC and others, we have come across 2,68,000 access points. So that is actually what is the growth. Growth is 300%. That is the reason what has happened is that the savings account, we call it a BSBD account, that basic savings bank deposit account, which was 73 million on 2010, March 2010, it was 73 million. It has in 3 years time, it has come to 182 million accounts we have opened. So that's a whopping 147% increase over 3 years. So obviously there is definitely our banker brothers have done a wonderful job in reaching out to the people. Now let me inform my banker brothers. There has been a steady increase in the deposits in the rural. There is a 40%. They have broken all the records. 40%. That means there is money. Only thing that we have to tap those resources, tap those sources of mobilizing the funds. I will tell you the statistics. While PSBD account has come to 182 million, these 182 million accounts have deposited with the banking system 182 billion rupees. 182 billion rupees. That means each account on 31st March 2013, each account had at least 1,000 rupees as the balance in the savings bank account. It's not a small amount. I'm talking about its outstanding balance on that particular date. The turnover could be quite huge, quite more. So this is another indication to my banking brothers, there is a business. You have to only tap those sources and start your business. Coming back to Odisha, the statistics is not very bad for Odisha also. Bankers have done quite a good job for Odisha. In 2013, number of branches were 3,800. Now it has come to 4,260. So that's a 12% increase in 1 year. Rural branches have gone up more. Around 18% of rural branches we have opened in only 1 year. Coming back to banking outlets, BC and other modes, it is 253% we have grown. 253%. From 8,500 outlets, now we have 21,500 outlets. So that means we have 253% growth we have done. And as per the bank BSBD account and amount of deposits are concerned, we are matching the national average. Same, we have around 1 crore, 10 million accounts we have opened as on 31st March 2014. That means 1 crore. And we have in these accounts savings of approximately 10 billion. That means again 1000 rupees in each account. I request all of you, initially we started with low scale. Now financial inclusion has become a compulsion. We have to reach out to the people. It's better for us that we reach out to the people. So kindly don't take it. So far, if any banker friend or anybody is taking it as a social obligation, that's wrong. We have to take it as a business opportunity. And it has been a fact, by facts it has been proved, so there is a business. Let us build this financial inclusion into our corporate policy as a business policy rather than as a social obligation. It is not CSR. It is not CSR. There is a business, we have to tap it. And obviously another very important issue for Odisha state is extremism. Extremism affected areas are still inaccessible from financial inclusion. So that is that concern we have to keep in mind. Credit absorption capacity and all that has been talked a lot, but I will only say forward and backward linkages. That market linkage will be another challenge for all of us. Consumer literacy and protection is also very, very important, because the large section of people do not know, they are not aware of banking facilities and what is in store. If we reach out to the people, if we literate them, then it will go a long way. And it's always, an intelligent, it's always to have intelligent enemy than a foolish friend, it is said. So that means we have to actually literate the people in order to make this mission a success. And our Executive Director Dipalpan Joshi Madam says the products given by the banks to these sections of the people should have a script. She said, I have script, SCRIPT. S stands for savings bank account. C stands for a credit, that means give a microcredit to the account holder, so that through supply you create the demand. Then R stands for, what is R? Remittances, yes. Remittances to the facility should be there. The account holder would be able to remit the funds to anywhere he wants. Then I for insurance, micro insurance, which Government of India, Government of States are coming about, which Mr. Behra actually spoke at length. Micro insurance. Then P stands for pension. Like he said, there are 40 lakh pensioners in the state of Odisha. Imagine, it's really a business potential. You simply tap it. And the T for transactions. You have to ensure that there are regular transactions in the account. Then only this financial inclusion gets deepened. Bankers have done a lot. Demand side also Government of India, Government of States have done as for creating the demand. Now all of us together can make this effort, this mission a success. With these few words from RBI perspective, I would now request from academic perspective from Madam Mishra.
In the field of rural management, the entire field is dedicated to the same ends that financial inclusion is trying to achieve. That is, to bring the large mass of people who are unconnected to the modern facilities and we take for granted, and bring them into the mainstream. One of the main concerns there from our perspective has been to understand from the ground up what are the constraints under which these households function, what are the opportunities they seek, and what kind of measures would help or support their efforts to make a livelihood for themselves. When we talk of the rural population, we often tend to think of them as a homogeneous mass. One of the main issues there is to identify the different levels of the livelihood trajectory that households are in. Now, once we look at it that way, then the kind of support they require becomes more evident. A laborer with 100 rupees income per day would, even if he has a bank account, would be able to avail of very few services, apart from the fact that he is too scared to even avail of these services. He has a problem of language, he has a problem of literacy, he has a problem of being intimidated by the very thought of having a bank account, and the fact that he has very little to fall back on if he takes a credit and is not able to repay. A few years ago, there was an article, there was a hue and cry about farmer suicides across the country, many parts of the country. It was interesting that just the year before, there was a large study done which said that the greatest penetration of credit had been in the eastern states, Odisha, Andhra, Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh. And right after the next year, we hear of farmer suicides. Because one of the main issues has been that even though people borrow from the formal system, many of them, up to 30 to 35% of them, also borrow from the same money lenders that they were used to. There are various reasons for this. It's a kind of a sociological analysis as to why they do. It takes along more expertise than probably I have. But what has come up often, what has been pointed out by researchers who go into the villages and try and talk to people, do sample surveys, that there are at least 3 reasons for this. One is absolutely sociological. They are caught in a web of relationships in a village which they cannot escape. Second is that they are often in requirement of money very urgently. If there is an illness, if there is a death in the family, and as you all probably definitely would know, that one of the main reasons for falling back below the poverty line of those households who actually make it above is the question of health expenses. That has been the primary issue for bringing people down below the poverty line, even though they were actually living just above it. So given these emergency needs, where do they get the credit from? Only from the person in the village who can give it to them overnight or right away. The second is that the kind of credit they would get from the banking system would not cover many of the needs they actually have, even in terms of education. For example, I don't think many of the households that were covered in one study I read, about 60% of them had educational loan needs. They wanted to educate the children, send them out of the village for a college education. They needed very little money, not even sometimes over £1 lakh annually, but they needed that. Now where do they go? Does the financial inclusion that we are trying to do help them get this money? These are some of the few things that they are disparate, but they are important things to think about. But if you look at it in a more conceptual way, actually I would like to go back to the question of my own field, which is rural management. It is not very well known as a field. Very few people really understand what it was set up for, or really know what it was set up for and what it aims to do. There are 4 or 5 colleges across the country, very few programs, and very few professionals graduate from these programs. But it has an interesting background. It started with the cooperative movement in the West. The big milk cooperative success that we have had, Amul being the flagship of that, driven by Dr. Kurian, he did not find enough professionals to manage the dairy cooperatives as they were growing, which is why he set up this new field called rural management. Incidentally, it is only in India, nowhere else is this term used. To think of, I was actually a few days ago talking in class to my students who had come back from the field and who had done some surveys about household needs. And I was telling them that, we can look at what Dr. Kurian had thought of. It's very interesting that of all the obituaries that talked about him, only one talked of actually what he had done. Every obituary lauded his achievements, but in detail discussing what was so great about what he could do, and very few others have been able to replicate across the country. It was only one American professor who wrote. And it was very interesting that he wrote, at that point of time, Steve Jobs' convocation address in Harvard was being talked about across the country. And many students were also listening to it. And he pointed out that, Steve Jobs makes a product very attractive and very useful. Definitely there is so much of innovation in it, but it's a product which you can see. And it's a product meant for a particular segment. But Dr. Kurian invented a process. He built up a process by which a person with one cow, a household with one cow, links up to the Bombay market to sell their milk and gets 78% of the consumer rupee back. All other milk companies give between 38 to 42% of the consumer rupee back to the dairy farmer. Now, building that up, the process through which he built up, I think has a very interesting lesson to learn in terms of extending financial inclusion or doing financial inclusion. A huge board was set up, National Dairy Development Board under the Ministry of Agriculture, but the board did not immediately set up unions and cooperatives across their region. They sent spearhead teams into the villages, professionals who were from all parts of the country, from premier colleges in the country, 5 or 4 of them into various villages to form the cooperatives. And at that point of time, at that point of time, the sociology in our villages was very troublesome. You imagine a group of people in a village across castes coming together to form one cooperative, where everybody has the equal share. You can imagine how tough the task was, and those of you who would remember the film Manthan would know the story. But from there, once the cooperative was built, a number of village cooperatives coming together to form the union, and NDDB supporting with various kinds of services, including finance, veterinary services, and other kind of support, and then up to the big success story of GCMMF and Amul. But when we look at it, it started from the grassroots, where the spearhead team really worked to solve the issues that were hampering a cooperative from forming. It was very troublesome times for them, but they did it. I also remember a very senior banker friend of mine who talks about his days as a PO in a rural branch when he was doing IRDP lending. In the late 70s till mid 80s we had IRDP lending. Now, when he talks about what he does, and I see what my students go and do in the villages, there's no difference. My students are supposed to be trained with all business skills and go and work for rural organizations and rural populations. I think the PO at the branch level during his training did the same thing in the 70s and early 80s. And they are very inspiring stories. But today when we talk of financial inclusion, looking at the numbers that were recently thrown up by a 6-state study, it was not a very systematic sample, but it was a focused sample, selective sample across some 2 or 3 districts in these 6 states. Very interesting revelations came up. Of the people who have bank accounts, between 17 to 32% have never used it. Some of them have even forgotten they had one. Many of the people who have bank accounts also, as I said, take credit from other sources and save by other means, including keeping it in the house or keeping it with a relative, particularly the women. Not all women are connected to SHGs, though the SHG success story is very good. But when we look at, from our perspective, the extent of reach that we have been able to achieve in the last 4 or 5 years, we heard some very impressive statistics, and I don't want to repeat them, but all of you know the story of how many bank branches have been, how many more have been there, how many more accounts have been opened, the KYC norms and the basic accounts, all of that. There's no need to repeat it. But from the other end, it looks a little different. And how do we do the last mile of achieving 100%? that becomes the most difficult. Obviously, those which are not covered are the more remote parts of the country, the more remote villages, and it's not a matter of coincidence that the most are in the northeast and some eastern states, and the poorest of the poor households. How do we reach them unless we think of alternative means? The business correspondent and business facilitators that have now come up definitely are a great innovation. However, between institutional BCs and individual BCs, there are a whole list of issues that don't enable success everywhere. Some of them have been resolved also. Again, I won't go into the details. I'm sure all of you are bankers, you know that. But definitely, there has to be a lot more examination of that. So ultimately, it boils down to two things. Do we think of financial inclusion as extending reach, or really doing what it was supposed, or what it is meant to do, and what we always keep saying, provide access to everybody in this country to financial services that they are entitled to? As sir rightly pointed out, it's a right. We are not doing them any charity. Neither is it CSR. But how do we do this? How do we think of access, which is whether I can actually go and transact, whether the person who can open an account, transact, understand, and feel empowered from the grassroots end, to thinking from this end when we say that we must reach everybody. Of course, the reaching everybody is necessary. Extending reach is a necessary task that all of us have to do. But is it sufficient? And looking at ground level studies, I think there are much more small steps that need to be taken, and they are not very difficult. It's not rocket science. It just needs thinking from the grassroots up as to what constrains households who are not able to use this. So I'll be happy to share them. Thank you all.
We are sitting here together and we say this is a brainstorming session on financial inclusion. So in the history we have read how the independence movement took place. It became a revolution and finally the independence was achieved. So I believe very confidently that the movement which was started in 1969 with nationalization of the banks, the basic purpose, definitely it was a financial inclusion only, but the terminology in the world has been coined somewhere in 2006-2007. But the purpose of nationalization of banks was financial inclusion. It started with the nationalization of some certain number of banks, then came RRBs, then came after that SHG linkage came, then NABARD was there. But I think the purpose with which it had happened, that was not actually achieved. So as we say, discovery is the mother of inventions. So creativity keeps coming, people keep thinking this should be done, that should be done. And then came the thought of financial inclusion, I think. Something like this should be done. Every household should have one bank account. And now we are coming to the next stage, comprehensive financial inclusion. Each household should have 2 accounts. That is the basic thing. If everyone in the family can have one account, that will be the ideal situation. But 2 accounts, and for the purpose of it, as we had that special SLBC meeting on 5th of August, where it was discussed why 2 accounts are required, to pass on the benefits given by government to the lady of the house. So I just felt that day, it was something very happy which I could feel. I think our regional director sir only mentioned that men, they get all the benefits in the accounts, it is not necessary, it reaches to the family. So government, I think they have thought that if it is given to the account of the women, so I think they are better financial planner and they take much better care of the finance of the family, and the move is really appreciable and we must appreciate the government thought on that. A lot of light has been thrown on RBI, Our regulator has taken lot of initiative, government is taking initiative, and all the banks, they are also becoming part of this movement and actively participating. And the figures which have been given by our additional secretary, they are really mind-blowing. And what he has added to that, that is just explosive, the growth in 3 years and all. So I think more than half the tunnel we have already crossed. Now it is the last leap in the marathon as the runners are running, and then finally in the last lap only they run very fast. So now last 5 years have come to us that we have to reach the targets and we have to complete the work which has been conceived by the government of India in the interest of the public and inclusive growth, of course. But here again, as madam just now she was talking, I am very much coinciding with her thought, and I agree that having accounts, that is one thing. Reaching door to door, that is also another thing, advantage of it. Third thing, the person who is opening the account, how aware the person is, why the account. So financial literacy, that becomes more important than having accounts of the people. If there is financial literacy, which is also, I believe this is a part of the job of bankers who are going to the panchayats, going to the villages, going door to door, whether it is through media, through newspapers, through leaflets, whatever the way it is. So reaching to the illiterate people and making them aware why we are doing it. Just now, some time back, I was sharing some thoughts with one of our banker colleague only. She was narrating one incident. In some village there was fire, and all the huts and this husk roofs are there. So many people, the ladies of the house, which they hide from their husband some money, save for the emergencies and all, they have kept it somewhere, means they have dug the floor in that they have kept, or under the bed they are keeping, or they are keeping in the thatched roof of their house. So the money which was so consciously saved by them, it was lost. So very recently we had visited one village with the thought of that we are going to open the branch there. So that was something that was very interesting which I could find there. We were meeting the Sarpanch there in 2 villages. We are going to open the branch shortly. So first thing, that Sarpanch, he was repeatedly telling, बैंक हमारा है, बिजनेस आपका है. जो बैंक खोलेंगे आप पंचायत में वो हमारा है. We were telling, I was again repeating, हम लोग बैंक खोलेंगे तो हमारे लोग यहाँ पे काम करेंगे, हमारे बैंक में हमें ये चाहिए. वो मुझे बार बार ही वॉज करेक्टिंग मी कि मैडम बैंक हमारा है, बिजनेस आपका है. So that is what is a feeling the people in the villages they have when a banker is going there with the thought that we will be opening the branch there. And last month we had opened a branch in one village. Sarpanch was a lady, and she was so enthusiastic about it. Entire village was there in front of our branch which we opened, and people, they just come forward and they are telling, madam चिंता करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है, हम लोग हैं यहाँ, आपके बैंक में कुछ भी होगा नहीं, सब कुछ बढ़िया होगा, ये हमारा बैंक है. So the feeling of that happiness they were having, that somebody is coming to us to allow us to do our saving, banking or something like that. On one hand we talk of viability, profitability, but I think that cannot be compromised. That feeling of happiness what they have on their face, anything is much lesser than that. If we can bring a little happiness on the faces of the people, that they have a thought, because they have a right to save. Even a rickshaw puller has a right to save. He is earning 10 rupees, he will save 2 rupees for his emergency time, for his health requirement, or some kind of other marriage of their daughter, son, education, whatever is there. But then for that, definitely this financial inclusion is the buzzword. We have lot of challenges which we are facing, but I don't think any challenge is that strong which cannot be overcome. When the crowd is going in the form of a movement and we have a vision, earlier we used to have a goal, then it became a mission, but I think now we have a vision that by 2019 every household of all over India that will be having the banking facility. To my perception, I believe financial inclusion that is to ensure that all the financial services and products should be available to everybody in general, and in particular those vulnerable people of the society, low income group or weaker section of the society, at the affordable cost and in a very fair and transparent manner, and it should be provided by regulated governing bodies. In the past, whatever could not be done and whatever the delay has happened, I think there was a lack of governance. And whatever the banks were doing, they were doing it for the reaching of their target only. With nationalization, 40% lending should be to the priority sector. Out of that, 18% should go to agriculture. So somehow we will cook up our figure that we have done. But actually, I believe, means I am part of banking industry for last 30 years. So I believe that we were not doing justice to the goal whatever was set. And that time it used to, when we started talking of financial inclusion in 2005, 6, 7, and I must take pride here in telling that I think Indian Bank was the pioneer in financial inclusion. Our then chairman and managing director, Dr. K.C. Chakrabarti, he took an initiative, and in Pondicherry, this financial inclusion, that was the first place where financial inclusion took place. And from there we are marching fast, and it has become a very, what shall I say, agile movement. And now we have come to the end of the tunnel, and I can see light is there across, and every individual will have access to the banking system. And in that we have to do our duty, that we teach all our customers who are coming, we make them empowered by enlightening them that what are their duties, what are their rights, and what they can demand from the bank, and they cannot be taken for a ride by their jamindars and other financial systems, whatever they are becoming victim to in the villages as of now. So with this I will just finish here. I do not have much to say because everything has been covered by. So what I think about financial inclusion, what is my perception, that I have presented here. Thank you very much.
Respected our Additional Chief Secretary Sri Bera sir, panelist Madam Chakravarti, panelist Madam Mishra, Sri Sethi, then our Regional Director Sri Kijan sir, other controlling heads of the banks, and delegates and other members. All our panel members have already told about the financial inclusion and this comprehensive financial inclusion. I am not talking further on that because time is short also, and in addition to that, I am only concentrating on Odisha. Especially I am from the bank, working from the different states and different places. I am concentrating on the Odisha only because if anybody is talking about financial inclusion, especially financial inclusion for Odisha is very much important than other states of the country. If there was some conference was there in our head office. When all controlling heads of the states, we just met each other, and we are asked how many Gram Panchayat, when the question of comprehensive financial inclusion or Sampurna Vikas Homas is coming, how many unbanked Gram Panchayat areas are in Odisha? When I told it is 4,957, they are all stunned. Is it possible? Is it possible such a big number of Gram Panchayats are not covered by the banks? So in that context only, in that context I am telling that Odisha is the real place where the financial inclusion should be implemented in a true spirit and manner. That is my concept. And financial inclusion, especially to deliver the financial products at a very cheaper rate, at a very short distance, and especially should be available to the poor people, those who are unbanked people, and not only to the rurals. Now it has come to the urban slum areas also. Both rural and urban both have to be taken care of. And since we have gone to such extent, and it is our responsibility, we should see that people should have a bank account. Whatever benefits they are getting, they must get it, and it is our duty to see that they are coming to that stage. And nothing is impossible. Whatever difficult maybe we may have from the banks of point of view, we are moving in a very big manner. Whatever targets are given up to 2019, definitely we will be able to do before that. especially in this particular this new financial inclusion. The banks are moving in a different directions, and to see how best we can do for how best we can achieve. Earlier financial inclusion there, but now the thirst is different. We have this bank, the government, and also is pushing in a different fashion, that in a very comprehensive and time bound and in a very systematic manner. And in addition to that, especially our additional chief secretary who is heading this particular matter, he has been very clear in his mind. The earlier established meeting, the state government is also putting also supports for banks to go ahead with this, like giving the free space for the panchayat office where we can go for banks, and we can open it there. There is no cost involved in it, and that we can see it. And the intention is universal access. Universal access. Everyone should have access to the bank. They can open and come and take the advantage of the banking sectors. Only if you are financing only the big corporates of the cities, it does not help out in any way. The nationalism purpose is also defeated. And if I quote one of my controlling heads in Kerala, this totally different picture. There is absolutely no village at all if you consider in that fashion, because only the bank, I consider because of bank branches in that particular state, they have finance. The number of branches, they are covering one branch is covering only 1,000, 2,000 people like this. But here branches are very less, and it is a very big role for all bankers, all stakeholders, all state government, or central government agency, RBI, and also NABARD. All are required to put that entire full effort for this particular state to achieve this task. We should achieve before, we should not wait up to 2019. We must achieve well before that. Just to add something, that we have opened a number, we have branches, but number of business correspondents have been given. But there is definitely some infrastructure problems like internet connectivity and electricity. Both two problems are there. Recently, I conducted all 132 BCs were called. I wanted to know personally what is the problem, why you are not able to do more transactions. Out of the 132 BCs, they told around 68 people, they told the main problem is internet connectivity and electricity. That we have already drawn the attention of our government also, and Behra Sahab also. They are also looking into it. If that is achieved, that road, electricity and internet connectivity, it will have a great effect. We will have a great to do things. Very fast we will achieve it. The number two is that providing basic bank account. Already though it is already, they have already told 2 accounts to be opened in each household, and at least 1 account immediately within 1 year. And the bank is also planning to see that BCs are working. Now we are making a survey. So which BC is getting how much amount? Unless somebody gets minimum 5,000, why he will work for the bank? Why will come to the bank? Why will go to the village? So we are planning in such a fashion that at least BCs are getting minimum 5,000 rupees, so they can work for the bank. Then beyond that, they can go ahead with this. That is the idea. In that fashion also, we are giving some sort of commissions only to encourage them to go to the people, arrange to open the banks, give the financial advice, and everything should be done in that fashion. So there should be. In the addition to that, whatever accounts we are likely to open, there is a plan to give 5,000 one overdraft account. In our meeting, somebody told how many people want to give 5,000 rupees overdraft. I was the first person to raise the hands as a controlling head in that office. I told I want to give 5,000 rupees overdraft, because they are the real poor people. Only thing, if this whatever benefits, cash transfer benefit, whatever social measures are being given, whatever pension is given, if that is rooted to that, absolutely there will be no problem. Even there is a problem, maybe 10 to 15%. There is nothing. So we must also take advantage. We must try to move in that way. 5,000 overdraft facility must be also given to this new account holders. In the microfinance, there should be said that we have to see the number of accounts we have already opened, but that is not in operation. This is one of the concern for the bankers. The main aspect is that the distance is very high, distance very far off places, they are not able to come. And number two, even they require money, bank checks sometimes, and we must address this issue. They prefer to go to the money lenders even at the rate of 60%. Though bank is lending only 10%, 12%, they are not able to come to them because of distance factor. They cannot come to the bank to take the loan or to deposit some money for spending a half day of the particular out of his own time. So we are addressing that problems. We are likely to put more BCs. We are likely to put more people. We are involving the local people. We are involving our retired staff. Even we are telling our retired staff working in that area. You also help us, the bank, to open the more accounts to people, to give the sufficient knowledge to the people. This 10 days back, I had gone to Udupi. I had to Mangalore. I wanted to see if there is any financial inclusion literacy is there. Then took us to the one Udupi center. The syndicate bank is operating their financial inclusion in the particular city, where there is a main temple is there. Near to that temple, where the syndicate bank original office was there. So they opened that financial literacy center. And when I went and I saw that a lot of people, those are coming to the temple and they are making such a fashion, people are attracted to that literacy center. So literacy is also one of the major area or main area where we can also literate the people. They can understand why they should come to the bank, why they should open to the bank, what benefit they will get, and in what way they will be benefited. That in the terms of quick disposal, in the terms of rate of interest. So many facilities are there that must be given. That literacy program should be there. The financial center should be there. I request if any bank or government RBI, they can start the literacy center in the main places where people can be attracted with the different things. They can see what are the things available in the bank, what are the things they have, what is the right, what they can do. That things may be available. The micro insurance already told. Micro insurance is a very big factor. That is a big challenge, and if that can be implemented, I think the bank itself will be may not be viable right now, the branches, but it will help in a long way to garner the business. So I request all of you, if any addition to that, if anything can be done, and this is a total comprehensive things. That means all stakeholders along with the local people, they should get themselves involved and see that the comprehensive financial inclusion is successful, especially in a state like Odisha, where 4,900 villages unbanked areas, which is may not be available in any part of the country. Thank you. Thank you for giving the chance. Thank you.
Especially Mr. Behra, who's been very proactive, and he has spent so much time. Nowadays, bureaucrats are very busy, but he has spared actually valuable time, and they have come and shared his perspective. Not only that, he has given a commitment that his government will be able to address the various infrastructure bottlenecks, and they are proactive in that. And a banker friends and a Madam Mishra, who has given actually non-bureaucratic and non-government and non-banker perspective to take financial inclusion to further level. She has her insights how we should understand that the financial inclusion from the customer viewpoint, from the account holder viewpoint rather than from the bank viewpoint. Thank you very much, ma'am, and my banker friends, Adam and Mr. Mahanti, for guiding the house in their own perspective. Thank you very much for media, print and electronic media, for giving us so much of time from you, and my banker friends, business associates who are there, and all the participants who have made this session very successful. Thank you very much.
I'll request Mr. P.K. Jaina, Regional Director RBI, to please be on the dais and hand over the mementos to all the speaker as well as moderator. Taking the name one by one, Sri U.N. Behra, IAS Additional Chief Secretary Finance, Srimati Kajri Mishra, Professor XIMB, Sri P.K. Mohanty, Chief Regional Manager, Indian Overseas Bank, Srimati Neera Chakravarti, DGM, Indian Bank. And last but never the least, Sri D. Shetty, GM, RPCD, RBI, who also served as a very good moderator for this session.